A lift is on almost every car guy's automotive bucket list, but sometimes it doesn't go as planned. Stay tuned, because I'm going to show you the reality of what happens. I reached out to my buddies over at Mike's Home Improvement. I told them what I was doing, and they suggested I start with drilling a few pilot holes. And here's when I found out that the garage actually had a 3-inch thick concrete floor. Immediately I talked to my dad and I was like, hey man, we're gonna have to cut up this floor if we want to put this lift in. So we started by mapping everything out. My buddies over at Mike's Home Improvement let me use their demo saw, and we kind of just figured out how to use it. Obviously, we should have had a mask on, so for anybody that's gonna say that, I already know. Next time, we're definitely going to have a mask. But what I was doing is scoring the lines, so that way when you add the water to the concrete saw, you can still figure out what you're cutting. Obviously, we're not concrete people. We just have that, we're going to get it done no matter what it takes type of attitude. And to pay someone to do this, it would have been a lot more than I had to spend. So this is what we did. Looking back at this video, you're going to notice I use a 5-gallon bucket to add water. Mike told me that the saw was always like this. It had a really bad clog. No one was ever able to get it out. And this is just kind of it. So I took his word for it, got the 5-gallon bucket, and I added some water. Because it wasn't regulated like the saw is meant to do, that means some of that concrete watery mix, that went everywhere. All the way up to the ceiling rafters, my TV, the whole nine. So I don't really recommend doing this, but if you gotta do what you gotta do, it is what it is. This next part of the video, this is where the hard work actually begins. We have to slice this whole thing around, and once you get into it, you kind of have to break it off in sections. So I ended up using a sledgehammer, bust things up as much as I can, and take it out in little chunks. I spend the next few minutes of this video kind of doing like a reverse Jenga style thing. My dad's going to hammer some stuff, and I'm going to use this pry bar here and try to get little pieces out so we can get things to move. And it really is a challenge. If you have to do this, you're in for a treat, but if you want to lift, I mean, you'll kind of go above and beyond and do whatever's necessary to get the job done. This is going to be my first good look at how thick this concrete actually was. And as you can see, this is concrete from the 40s. It's definitely old school. And one thing you can notice about it, there's no rebar in any of this. My dad hangs out for a little while longer, and then I get to busting up the rest of this because he had to go to work, which I don't blame him. I wouldn't want to be around for any of this either. There are two reasons why I cut this floor out. The first one being that it was only 3 inches thick. The second one, I have this garage floor drain and I have no idea how wide it goes in the spread of this floor. It's old school, it's from the 40s. That tank bar we were using to bust up the concrete, that thing went all the way down, and that's a little over 4 feet tall. I couldn't chance something like this, so I had to dig it all up. It's a pretty good size hole. My only option is going to be to backfill this because I don't want anything to shift under the load of this freshly poured concrete. Keeping the floor drain is also a must. Having the option to spray the floor down, scrub it with soapy water, get everything all nice and clean, and then being able to squeegee it back to the center of the garage, it's one of those things you cannot live without. After I got my drain all set and installed, I started backfilling and leveling everything out. Not only did the concrete have to be busted up, but it also had to be removed. In perfect timing, my buddy Ryan showed up, and thankfully he helped me take all this concrete, put it right outside the door, so I could then move it again. The concrete was 3 inches thick, and the lift called for 4 inches of 3,000 PSI concrete. I was going to be using 4,000 PSI, and I wanted to double what they wanted. So that meant digging down another 5 inches. Total, from the top of the concrete to the bottom, I wanted 8 inches, and it might not look like a lot of dirt, but digging down 5 inches, a 4-inch wide by 14 area, is a lot. It felt like one of those jobs that it was never going to end, and thank God I have this old square body because I don't know what I would have done with this dirt. I could go on and on for hours on how I did this, but it's a pretty simple setup. Once I had all of the rocks and stuff out, I took a 2x4, went across my pad, and I just used my tape measure to set the depth. After working out here till about 3 a.m., it was time to call it a night. Not only did we have the joys of cutting the concrete, busting it up, and then moving it all, and then digging all of this, I had the joys of taking all the concrete bags off the truck, and I had to use 60 80-pound bags. That comes out to 4,000 pounds of concrete that I had to move myself. And I didn't move it just once, but I did it twice because it's still going to go into the mixer. About an hour later, thankfully my buddy Dick showed up, and he helped me kind of set all the rebar and the screens in place. What I had done, I took 1/2-inch rebar, and I drilled it into the existing concrete, and I also used an epoxy setup. I didn't want any chance of any movement. Shortly after, my brother shows up. This is not exactly something you can do by yourself, so thank you to everybody that did show up for this. This was a lot of work. I would lift up the bags, my brother would cut them open, mix everything, dump it, and then Dick would kind of level everything out. It was definitely a 3-man process. This is something, if you try to do by yourself, it would take you a very long time, because time's not really on your side when you're dealing with concrete. But we didn't need no fancy mixing truck or anything like that. We came up with a system that just worked. I'm not going to tell you this is the smartest route to go, because obviously if you can have a concrete truck come by, definitely do that. But in my case, local companies, you can only do a 5-yard minimum. This was about 1.5 yards. So I would have a lot of extra, and it's winter time. Nobody really wants to come out and do this, so this was kind of the only option. With all the concrete out, everything kind of getting leveled up, it is time to shut the door, blast that heat because it's about 25 degrees out, and sit back and say, would you just look at that? And that is exactly what we did. Things kind of got a little watery. Most of the times when you're doing concrete, water rises to the top, so it's important to have that heat going or warm weather to make that evaporate and kind of set up like it should. I came back out here about 5 hours later. It's about 3 a.m. and I just wanted to check on things. Everything's messy, but the concrete is setting up. I'm kind of looking around and I'm like, wow, that concrete made it everywhere when we were cutting it. Look at the TV. It is literally all over the place. It is going to take me months to clean this. Fast track to about 3 weeks to 28 days later. 28 days is really where you want to be as far as concrete set time. Things were leveled up and drilled. It's time to install our anchors, which I really didn't get a video of. Keep in mind, each lift is going to be different. I've been kind of talking about this for a while. I finally got a lift. She's installed, everything's wired up, and fully functional. This is just a generic 9,000 pound lift. It's nothing crazy, it's no high-end brand or anything. But it's pretty serious. It does exactly what it should. This thing's perfect. We got the Camaro right here, obviously. Check this out. Starting this out with a demo saw and a sledgehammer, finally getting to the point where I could put a vehicle on this lift is a dream come true. I am literally out here working almost every day, and you can only get so far on jack stands. Is it doable? Yes, absolutely. But having a lift is a dream that literally came true. I just want to take the time to say thank you guys, everybody that showed up and helped. This was a huge process and I know it was a lot of work. Thank you guys so much, it means the world to me. And of course, if anybody needs the lift, you guys know where to find me. This couldn't have gotten done without you guys. Now I can tackle things like this, I can get a good look at what's going on, I can take my time, pay attention to details, and I feel like this is really going to improve the channel. I know what some of you are going to think too. I didn't show you guys the video of me putting up the lift. Well, the reason why I didn't is because every lift is going to be different. If you read the manual that goes with your lift, that'll tell you everything you need to know. Basically, you just bolt it together, run the cables, and go off of the manufacturer's specs, fill it with oil, wire up that lift motor according to whatever you have. If this video helped you in any way, please hit that subscribe button. I hope you guys like this type of content. The videos that you see are about as real as it gets. I don't have any sponsors, but what I do have is the attitude that no matter what I want to do, if I set my mind to it, I can get it done. And thankfully, that is all due to the people around me as well. So thank you guys for watching, and I'll catch you on the next one. Also, this is a little sneak peek at our next video. Obviously, it involves solving another problem.